I guess I could get that video off of there. Psychedelic. How about this one? You like?
Wow, kind of distracting.
Yeah.
It looks a little demonic.
Here's the world. A city. It's important in a way. You've got the world there. I can't see much of it myself. City. Got a map of the world. You've got a green screen and Qumran. These all go together in some ways. I won't show you the other pictures I have on there. You're supposed to put a green screen behind you, and if you have one, then it's just supposed to give you your image in front of whatever that picture is. The only question is, how do you get rid of it once you get started? By the way, I think anyone could do this. I mean, it's besides the video thing, there's a little arrow up, and it says the choice is choose a virtual background. Yeah.
Yeah, choose none. It'll turn it off.
Thank you. That's why you're a professor. Very good. Well, that's a lot of fun. And I want to thank Anne Lelkende for that cup of coffee. It was very regenerating. Steve's in the hospital right now. He's had a blood problem, and he's been in 2 days now. Keep him in prayer, if you would. Oh, what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Obadiah, chapter 1. And since this is going to be short and sweet, I think that I'll just read the entire passage for you. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim to Edom. Edom is considered these days the heathen world around Israel. A report we have heard from Yahweh. An ambassador among nations was sent. Rise, yea, let us rise against her for battle. Lo, little I have made thee among nations. Despised art thou exceedingly. This is the Young's literal translation. We have to think about this as we interpret to ourselves on at least two levels. We've got the level of prophecy of historical events, but we also have the level of prophecy on spiritual events and contemporary events as well. I have made thee little among nations. Think about yourself. Think about your kith and kin in the spirit. Think about the other people that are here with us today. Consider the Pesach concept of the unity and the fable about the sticks. Put the sticks together and you have a very, very strong bond. Break them apart, and each one can be severed individually very easily. The pride of thy heart hath lifted thee, O dweller in cliffs of the rock. Speaking of Edom here, that is, in a spiritual sense, what is foreign to the ways of Yahweh. Not just the Middle East. We're not talking just about Arabia and Syria or Idumea in the old days in Perea. The pride of your heart hath lifted thee up, O dweller in cliffs and rock. That really tells you where it is. We can see this on three dimensions, actually. We can see this from the perspective of the prophet. We can see this from the perspective of, say, modern Israel. The one chance that I got to go to Israel, at the Dead Sea, I saw an American couple and their children who had done Aliyah. I came to find out, and I asked the man of the family who was carrying a machine gun on his back. I said, why you carry this gun here? There's nobody here to bother you. And he said to me, look over there. We're at the Dead Sea. Right across there is the enemy of my new people. If your enemy was right over there, would you not be carrying a machine gun? I hyperbolized that a little bit, of course, but he was right. In a contemporary sense, people want to take away our guns because of something that happened in New Zealand. That is the raiding of a mosque and killing of the people inside there by white supremacists, I understand. Then, again, the call has come, as New Zealand did, of taking away guns. The only thing between Edom and Israel. There's another way to understand this as well. That is, on our personal level, and the level that has to do with our unity, our Yahad, is that we have an enemy, and it's closer than across the Dead Sea. I don't mean to be xenophobic, but our potential enemy can be our neighbor, who is fueled by a power that we consider to be shibboleth, to be cursed. A power that has no body, but free spirit to go where it will, to harbor where it wants. That is our Edom. And as for our Edom, a high place is his habitation, for he is saying in his heart, "Oh, doth bring me down to earth. If thou dost go up high as an eagle, and if between stars thou dost set thy nest, from hence I will bring thee down." Which is, according to the prophet, an affirmation of Yahweh. That's verse 4. I wonder, somebody I admire told me that Yahweh does nothing except with the hands of the holy. Who is to bring down Edom today? I'm talking about that spiritual Edom that afflicts and affects us personally day by day, and as a Yahad who comes against us with, shall I say, weapons? No, mediocrity. Mediocrity. How will Yahweh bring down Edom in this day if he has no hands? Oh, yes, he could destroy the universe. But he has limited himself to no hands except our hands. 5. If thieves have come into thee, if spoilers of the night, how hast thou been cut off? Do they not steal their sufficiency? If gatherers have come into thee, do they not leave gleanings? How hath Esau been searched out? Flowed out have his hidden things been. That's easy enough to understand. Hidden things, secret things, inner things. Conspiracies, oh yes. But a deliriously demonic power has bound us that we become echad only unto ourselves and not echad in the togetherness. 7. Unto the border sent thee, have all thine allies forgotten thee, prevailed over thee, have thy friends. Thy bread they make a snare unto thee. There's no understanding in them. Indeed, the spiritless humans have something over on us because they accept fully the unity provided in the hierarchy of bodiless demons that come unto them and make them one with or without their will, their freedom of will. In Yahweh, he gives us a disadvantage. We are not poltergeist. We are not just myrmidons. We have a will to choose or reject, and not only all or none, but how much we want, how much we will claim our inheritance, how much we will claim our victory, our ability to overcome. In numbers there is power, yet we remain islands, despite that great hymn of yesterday, no man is an island. I would be contrary to that. Men, women are islands. And he even says himself, little flock, narrow way. We don't want to be against ourselves because a nation divided itself cannot stand. Yet we know that some would say it is not for us to meddle with world affairs. Besides the fact that Yeshua has said, you are salt and light. A city set on a hill can't be hid. Eight, is it not in that day an affirmation of Yahweh that I will destroy that I have destroyed the wise out of Edom and understanding out of Mount Esau. The devil has a very great disadvantage, even if the will of those who follow him are one, and that is that he's ubiquitous. He's everywhere. He doesn't require a complete choice, although there are many that make a complete choice for him and become possessed in him. Yet there are so many Mongolian candidates for Esau. The wise are destroyed because we have no use for free will or intellectualism on that level. We only have use as the communist governments of the 40s and 50s, of useful idiots, where these leaders can convey themselves unto the masses and say, you will obey, and we will give you the sustenance you need only to live. We will take away those institutions of faith and religion that bind us up as though the people within those institutions had any ability to do anything. Oh, if they only knew who they were. And yet, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Belarus, we keep them separated. Even though our mighty ones are broken down, verse 9, O Timan, so that every one of the mount of Esau is cut off. Look, the diabolical, the sociopath, the enemy knows, in spirit anyway, that they are already cut off. They lose. They lose. Their time is short. Yet they fight as one, as automatons, as robots, under the diabolical power of their father, the first murderer, father of lies. (11) In the day of thy standing over against, in the day of strangers taking captive his force, and foreigners have entered his gates, and for Jerusalem have cast a lot, even thou art as one of them. We are believers, yet how much do we believe? What percentage? 1/9? 1/3? Our potential for belief can only be judged by what we do. I've heard so many say, I'm afraid of deliverance ministry. I'm afraid of taking up arms against the devil. I know just as much as I want. It's a fearful thing to fall into the hands of a vengeful Satan. Leave me alone. I don't want to learn this. I don't want to deal in these areas. I don't want to become dirty with fighting the devil. That is a great mistake, except for the weakest and faintest of spirits. We need to know. One of the things that I admire Liz McGee for is her constant vigilance that we are in a war against Edom today. The Edom next door, the Edom in government, the Edom in the world. And on Facebook this week, I read some people sending memes in the feed. One world government is soon to be upon us. I got news for you. One world government has been upon us for a long, long time. Yet they don't see it because they're ill-informed. They want to follow the meme, but they don't want to look into what's behind the meme. They don't want to know. They are afraid. They are ignorant. Oh, if we could only muster such as these to learn, to understand the battle that we're in, and most of all, to acquire a knowledge of who they are in Messiah, 1, and 2, what they have been sent here in this time to do. 12, and thou dost not look on the day of thy brother, on the day of his alienation, nor dost thou rejoice over sons of Yehuda in the day of their destruction, nor make great thy mouth in a day of distress. Look, make great thy mouth? Oh, I can't talk about that. When you can't talk about that, you take up your residence and your identity with the world. Exactly. You hear that? Nor make great thy mouth in a day of distress. At least we can identify such foreign bodies that tear apart our unity, that speak to us and tell us that we're nothing, that we can't, that we won't, that we need not get into this, that we need not dirty our white robes even a little in order to bring forth the kingdom that must come, but is so delayed because Elohim has no hands in his people. Verse 15. For near is the day of Yahweh on all the nations. In the Septuagint, that word is ethnoi, tribes. As thou hast done, it is done to thee. Thy deed doth turn back on thine own head. Of course, he's speaking of Edom again. But what is Edom? This day of Yahweh has come and gone. And what is good about that is we have not to suffer it, but also we can analyze it and see what it means in case it could happen again. And I believe it will, and it certainly is on a much more subtle plane than in 70 AD, or the war between war of 66 AD to 73. That is when it turns out, according to Revelation, that Messiah comes down with his elect warriors, his saints, those who died in the Neronic persecution, the 144,000, he brings down to oversee the day of Yahweh over Jerusalem and Israel, and to fight if necessary, but not for Israel. He fights for the destroyer, just as in the past. Say, for instance, the prophet Habakkuk. He calls on Yahweh. He says, vengeance and violence, that's all I see. What are you going to do? Yahweh replies, you know nothing about the plan of the kingdom. I'm going to send a foreign force to them to chastise them and even kill them. But what about this foreign force? Asked Habakkuk. I'm going to send another force onto them to chastise them. And if necessary, another force and another force. I am going to use the heathen to bring forth my judgment on those that I love. As we know, in that time, 66 to 73 AD, the Romans swooped down. It wasn't the Romans only. I mean, all of Edom swooped down upon Israel, killing, crucifying, beheading, destroying, killing animals, poisoning water, burning up the ground, cutting down all the trees, and finally, when all the convicted were gathered into Jerusalem, flattening to the point of 200,000 to 2 million dead. They're not sure which. Yeah, this is bad news, but Yahweh promised us all along, and his house had to be redeemed. Among his house were many, many enemies, and they gathered there, and Yahweh used the heathen under the generalship or hegemony of Yeshua, his son, to show forth vengeance that we call the day of the Lord, or the day of Yahweh. 16, for as ye have drunk on my holy mount, drink do all the nations continually, and they have drunk and have swallowed, and they have been as they have not been. Yet in Mount Zion there is an escape, and it hath been holy, and the house of Yaakov have possessed their possessions. Let's just bring this down on a spiritual level again. When you were converted, you came into possession of great gifts. Not only promises, but gifts, they're there. But what we as a people have not done, or done for the wrong reasons, is to have come into Yahad. I was reading an article this week about, let's see, what was, it was about the army. One general was complaining. Identity in the army. He said it used to be, we could take people from all over the place and make them army, make them one, under discipline, under rules, and even despite themselves. We found ways of touching their inner soul and bringing them forth so they could work as a unit, because that was the most important thing they could do to possess their lives. He was talking about identity politics. But he said today there's a new strategy that is to keep people in their own identity or culture and try to bring them into unity in the armed forces, and at the same time help them to keep whatever they came in with. If they were Hispanic from, say, Puerto Rico, keep your heritage. If they're Islamic, and there are many Islamic people in the armed forces, keep your heritage of Islamic. If they were white middle-class Americans, well, not so much. But to have them divided by culture is what this general understood to be the most difficult problem for bringing unity to the armed forces. It's the same with us. Bring in whatever you have. Bring in your culture. Bring in your personal beliefs. Bring in whatever you are expert in, and it seems that everybody is an expert in theology. And stay to your own. Make a new denomination. Start a new Yahad. Unity is only important in a spiritual sense. And what happens? When it comes to the battle, all unity on that course shuts down. And one begins again at the deepest level of fear to identify first off with where they came from rather than what they have been converted to, because they've really not been converted to anything, certainly not to unity. The Christian church and the Hebrew roots movement, they multiply by dividing. Everybody complains about there being 200 to 22,000 different denominations, yet the ones that complain the loudest are often the ones that have advocated the most. But in 18, the house of Yaakov hath been a fire, and the house of Yosef a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they have burned among them, and they have consumed them, and there's not a remnant to the house of Esau, for Jehovah hath spoken. Yahweh hath spoken. Now look, this is a prophecy, because this has never come to pass before, but in a very real way, and in a very nationalistic way, this has come to pass. Because look, for instance, at the literal people involved here in our day. Who's the powerhouse nation? Israel can go in anytime they want and take over any of those countries they want. They're powerful now, but they don't. And look what President Trump has done just this last week. Given the go-ahead to finally, after 52 years, take in the Golan Heights in Syria, what was Syria. You go to the Golan Heights and you know that there are all kinds of still tanks blown up there and barbed wires, minefields. There's nothing up there except the land, the buffer zone between Israel and Syria. Trump says, you have my blessing. Finally, you have possessed this land for 52 years. Make it official. And I, as the most powerful man in the world at this time, whether you like it or not, I will back you up in that. Netanyahu called that the Purim miracle. Indeed. In our own lives, there are those territories that though we have right over them, we don't take them back. We seem to like the friction, or we like the idea of a minefield, or we like the idea of barbed wire. We like it or we're afraid of it. Perhaps it's fear. That's the part of us that the devil has still. The land he, in national terms only, still possesses, because we have not taken it into ourselves officially. Oh, I heard a testimony this week from somebody who was able, through self-deliverance, to repossess a very large area that they had possessed all along but hadn't taken possession of. It thrilled my heart to hear. Habits overcome, addictions overcome, through the power of the blood of Yahshua. And oh, for that person, the battle's just begun, because even righteous believers remember. They remember, and they label, and they stereotype. And though maybe for a brief moment they rejoice with a rejoicer, still they go back to their unpossessed lands. Verse 20. And the removed of this force of the sons of Israel, that is, with the Canaanites unto Zarephath, and the removed of Jerusalem, that is, with the Sepharad, possessed the city of the south. How is that going to happen? How is the possession going to actually come into possession? And that's left for this epigraphic 21st verse of this one chapter little prophetic book, Obadiah. And gone up have saviors on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom hath been to Yahweh. Oh, that word in Hebrew, saviors, Moshiachim, messiahs, messiahs. There cannot be possession of the cities of the south had there not been Moshiachim coming to the fore to convince the people of Yahweh that they need to reclaim that territory that the devil has taken, or some sad situation has taken. Reclaim it, deliver it, encourage them to come on, train them. Go on up, have saviors, messiahs on Mount Zion. Just like in Revelation chapter 14 again, as Yahshua goes up to Zion with the minions of the righteous and oversees the day of Yahweh upon all Israel. Who are our saviors? Those in charge of these groups that are so close to the truth, yet they themselves are so xenophobic. We need saviors that will not only come to the fore, but also be able to rally people as an echad people into a yahad, because there is battle to be done, and there is that day of judgment that is not only to come but is upon us, and he has no hands but ours. And I'm wondering, will you take up your rightful place as a Messiah and come with me unto Mount Zion and to judge the Mount of Esau? Judge means not only to sit on a bench and pronounce, but to do the work of ministry, to destroy the works of the devil. This is a war. A war, and our enemy is strong because our leaders of this country and many of the nations of the world are nothing more than bags of skin, bone, and fat, motivated entirely by the demonic bodily spirits of this world, who were cast out of the place of their glory through rebellion. How can we come into Yahad here, saviors? You might say, I'm not a savior. Look, you don't have a chance. You don't have any choice now. Free will? Sure. You can say, this is my free will, I don't have to do it, or I'm scared, or I'm not warlike, or anything like that. Well, nobody's a bigger sissy than I am. Yet we must come together as Moshiachim for the sake of all Israel to judge the Mount of Esau, that is the power of Esau, because we know the kingdom has been, past tense, to Yahweh. Now look, Very Ahad goes to great lengths to bring training to you 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week. And lately, as to mine, the last 2 months, Yahweh has told me to open up the vault of my heart and talk about my experiences in deliverance ministry. I have avoided it for 10 years because it has been dirty work. But it doesn't have to be. We can expel the spirit of this world. We're at the very beginning of a millennium kingdom, a day of judgment. What we do now is going to affect the next 500 years. I don't say this lightly. It's true. What we do now, we are on a parallel course with the 1st century AD. In 1996, that was the end of the 6,000 years. Now, how many years have we gone? 23 years. You say, where is Jesus if this is that time? It's not time for him to come yet, but it's time for us to come. Look, the scalpel is in the world. The scalpel has come to this country. Evil has been displayed in our government, especially in a particular party of our government. Evil is on display. And what do? Well, we have more problems to have to deal with that. Hey, I've got a toothache. I have a toothache that's killing me. I want to major in killing a toothache right now, but there are greater battles. There are greater battles, and the enemy has opened themselves up by actually coming forth on the truth on so many things. Are you a savior? Can you see yourself in the place of a Messiah, an anointed one who comes into the world with many others to ameliorate this world, this country, who can see the open wounds of disease, who can see and hear the oppressed crying out in their need for food and medicine and help, who can almost taste in the air a change coming, and can look down the road to say, yes, we're here now. We need to get involved now. We need to start the change now so that our progeny, so that our heirs in the Spirit can come together in a closer relationship and totally destroy Edom before Edom destroys that which Yahweh created as good. Come together. Come together right now. Become one in Yahad. Step out in faith. Receive training. Destroy the enemy in your own life. And then come forth onto Mount Zion with your Savior and overlook the victory over Esau, the world. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Very told, Devar. A right on time, Devar. Amen. All right, let's go into our prayer time. Give me 1 second. Let's get our mindset to go into our prayer time. Wait 1 second. Okay, there you go. Okay. Let's come before the presence of the Almighty and pray.